Luke Skywalker in Episode 8 is not the same character we saw in The Return of Jedi, but 13 years have passed and people can change in that long period of time. However, his attitude could be considered for many people a drastic one. In this video I will explain the story that Mark Hamill gives to Luke before The Last Jedi. In The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker is a shadow of what he once was. Although it is understood that many things had to have happened in that period of time, the two films that we have had so far have been scant in the details. We know that yes, he feels guilty for Ben Solo's fall to the dark side and the loss of his apprentice, but still for many, including Mark Hamill himself, this is not a strong enough reason to fully explain Luke's status in Episode 8. Through his lightsaber aside, refuse to speak of Force, remove himself from it and go to a lonely island to die, understanding the optimism nature of Luke Skywalker's characters, Mark Hamill understood that something else had to have happened. Something terrible to have explained Luke's attitude and helped him in the interpretation of his character. Mark said in an interview, referring to the challenges of playing the character of Luke, that the actors like the background stories. They want to know the motivation and all those things. And what he had with Luke was a blank slate. He said, "I came to the conclusion that this is no longer my story and that what Luke did or did not do in the middle years is not really important to the audience at this moment. But I had to solve this by myself. So to make sense of what was happening and to be able to do his acting, he imagined his own version of what happened to Luke during this time, and he wrote many scenarios. In one of them, he wrote a classic story and context to justify Luke's action in Episode 8. In it, Luke meets and falls in love with a woman who was a widow who had a small child. Luke knew that the Jedi were not supposed to have personal relationship, so he said that Luke had to leave the Jedi temporarily. During this time, he went to raise this little boy and marry this woman. But in an unexpected act of destiny, the boy took the lightsaber in his hands and accidentally killed himself. Now, we can only imagine the pain that Luke must have felt in those moments and the misfortune that it had to be for him, feeling guilty for what happened and how everything was the product of the Jedi Order. In The Force Awakens, then, he would return to find a destroyed Jedi Academy, his dead apprentice, and Ben Solo, his sister's son, on the dark side. I think that having passed this, it's easy to understand why he did not decide to return. The guilt, surely, was tormenting him in his mind. He had only been the cause of the family's suffering. It would also help to understand why he says that the Jedi must end. Because before the age of Luke, they have only brought misfortune, and also explained why he does not have this lightsaber green. Because it was the weapon that caused the tragedy and got rid of him. And more importantly, it would explain why Luke threw his all lightsaber without saying anything. Because I didn't want to know anything about lightsabers. For him, the lightsabers were only instruments of pain. Although we don't know what happened to Luke had this point of view between episode 6 and episode 7. This is not an official story. It is just the story that Mark Hamill builds in his mind so he can take Luke to the place the movie required. What do you think of this version? Do you feel that it explains Luke's behavior well? Do you think it is very tragic and what is presented in the film is enough? Let me know what you think in the comments to discuss it. And remember, if you liked this video and you like Star Wars, do not forget to subscribe and give a like to this video, with more topics of Star Wars will be commented. Thanks for saying it. May the Force be with you. This was smartintelligence.si.